Okay, so I don't know if this is our last day on the sugya, because I don't know if we're going to have Rambam Bekius tomorrow. I guess we'll have to discuss that. But we did not get as far as I thought because we got so in depth into new problems that we hadn't noticed before. Okay, so let's just do a quick review, not of everything, but just of the stuff that was relevant to our sugya. So yesterday we I think the main thing in relation to the sugya of like what's the nature of simchas Purim that we see from the Rambam is that the days of the 14th and 15th of Adar, this is in Hilchos Megilah וחנוכה 2:14. So the days of the 14th and 15th of Adar in both months of Adar, even Adar Rishon where you don't celebrate Purim, have the character of simcha, but only negatively, meaning that it's usher for you to fast or eulogize on them, even though you're not reading the Megillah on them even though you're not doing anything on them in the first Adar, and then in the second Adar, then he mentioned that if you are a villager and you read the Megillah early, then the days of the 14th and 15th are still prohibited for you in eulogizing and fasting. And we noted that there's only one precedent for this that we know of in Deoraisa, which is Rosh Chodesh is usher also is a day of simcha, but there's no positive expressions of simcha. It's only usher to fast and eulogize. So we know that was one commonality. Okay. Then we got into the Su'uda, and that's where we stopped yesterday, I think, right? We did Keta chova suda zo, shiocho basar v'yisakev suda na ekfia shartim sayado, v'shosa yain ad sheyish taker v'yiradim b'shikrus. So how do you do the suda? That he eats meat and makes a nice suda, which we assume suda means bread, according to his financial means. V'shosa yain, and he should drink wine ad sheyish taker v'yiradim b'shikrus, until he gets drunk and falls into a deep sleep in drunkenness. Oh, now this is a side point. So I don't know why I've never done this before, but I started like a half an hour ago compiling a list of all the sources about the drunkenness on Purim. Like I have it on PowerPoint in summary form because I used to teach in high school, but I don't have the actual sources, you know.
This feels so stereotypically you.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. I gotta have all the sources. So I saw the shocking thing. I mentioned yesterday the Me'iry holds that oh no, I translated the Ma'iry on the PowerPoint. Hold on. The Ma'iry I mentioned holds that we don't get drunk on Purim. Okay. At all, seemingly. Well, you'll tell me because I had relied on a summary of the Ma'iry, but I finally looked him up inside, and I'll show you what he says. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because of something that is shocking to me in relation to the Rambam. So we're not just doing this as a Rishon. Yeah.
What's the source?
The source is, I think I actually listed the source here. Nope, that's the Maharil. I did the Meiri at the end. Nope, not at the very end. Beis HaBechira, Megillah Zayin Amud Beis. Okay, so this is what the Meiri says. Am I sharing the whole screen? Who knows these days? Let's try again. I was just about to read the Meiri that I mentioned yesterday, who holds that you do not get drunk on Purim, but I wanted to read it inside. Okay, so he says, yeah, and it's not just the Meiri. I said that there are a couple other ones yesterday, but it's actually a whole team. Okay, a whole team of people. So the Meiri says, so a person is obligated to increase in this rejoicing on this day in eating and drinking until he doesn't lack anything. I think that means like go all out, you know. Oh, here, you got some over here if you want these. Yeah, here, take the best one. The least broken one. Okay. So he says, nevertheless, we are not commanded to become drunk. So he says we're not commanded to be drunk, okay, to become drunk. To degrade ourselves out of we are not commanded on a simcha that has wildness and idiocy. But rather a simcha that has enjoyment, rather in a simcha that of enjoyment that brings us to love of God and to gratitude for the nisim that he did for us. Okay, yeah. Oh, I forgot to translate it here. All right, fine.
This is weird.
What?
You can read this in multiple ways.
We're not done yet.
Oh.
Yeah, we're not done yet. Okay. Yeah. So he says, hold on. Yeah. Umasha Amar Khan. So that which it says here, Adelo Yada Ben Araham Baruch Mordechai, right? So what does it mean you drink until you don't know the difference between you become drunk until you don't know the difference between Araham and Baruch Mordechai? Kvar Pirshu Katas Gaonim. So there's some Gaonim who already explain Shemimashi Hiskir Acharav, that from the story that happens after it. Kam Rava Shachti Rabbi Zera Nidchu Kol Asam Devarim. So then all of those matters, meaning the halacha to get drunk, was rejected. So he holds because the order,
like the way we use slaughter, like he killed him in an argument.
The Meiri actually no. So there's several interpretations. Let's just here. Yeah. So let's just look at the Gemara. I have the Gemara on here as well.
It's like a rap thing. Killed him and brought him back to life.
Yeah. Okay. So
how they're meaning it.
Well, let's read it. Okay, so here's the Gemara, right? Amar Rava Michayv Inish Levasume B'Porei Adolei Yada Ben Araham and Baruch Mordechai. So a person is obligated Levasume, which Rashi says is to make himself drunk. Okay, and as far as I know, like people like to try to explain away of Levasume. I've never seen. I'm trying to get all of the sources now. I haven't seen anyone say that levasume means anything other than getting drunk. Like it doesn't just mean like drinking means getting drunk. In fact, the Rif says lihishtaker, and Rav the shitos, Rav Achai Gaon or whatever also says something like that. So
is it always lihishtaker b'yayin or just?
So that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, Rashi says b'yayin, and it's unclear whether he's saying that levasume means lihishtaker and then he's adding b'yayin here, or whether it means to get drunk on wine.
Also, does that mean specifically like drunk or just inebriated?
So plain pshat is shiur as opposed to shasui. So we made the distinction yesterday that shiur means that you can't speak in front of a king, and shasui just means you feel the alcohol.
What I'm really asking is, does it need to be alcohol? You know?
Yeah, it does.
Do they have words for other things?
No, they did not. Yeah,
they didn't have words for that.
No, they
How
didn't.
do we know if it?
Because this is what it means to get drunk. I mean, that's what the words mean.
I'm saying is.
I know people always want it to mean whatever they want it to mean, but I know.
What else would it mean? I don't know.
He's trying to say, does it mean to like have other substances that? But no.
I'm genuinely asking. Like I'm saying, how would if they wanted to say that? How would they have said that?
I don't know.
Like, would there have been a different?
I don't know, and the fact that I don't know doesn't mean that that's what it means. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So then, right after this in the Gemara, it says. Rav of Rabbi Zera, Avdu Sudas Purim Bahadad Yadai. So Rav and Rabbi Zera, Amorai made a Purim meal with each other. Ivsum, they became drunk, right? Now here Rashi says they became drunk. He doesn't mention Bayayin, but this is like literally the next Rashi right afterwards. Right. So I think he's only commenting because of the weird word Ivsum. I don't know why he needs to say this.
Which one was this? Which level?
This is when you can't speak in front of a king. Without making a mistake,
so it's very light level
of. Yeah, but not the lightest. The lightest is when you just feel the alcohol. This is when you can't speak properly. Okay. Kan Rabba shachted Rabbi Zera. Rabba got up and slaughtered Rabbi Zera. Lamachar, the next day, by Rachme of Ache. The next day he prayed for mercy, and Rabbi Zera was revived. So question is, what does slaughtering mean? So you obviously have people who take this literally, who say that he actually killed him and then he davened and then miracle was done and there was tches mesim. Again, I find that hard to believe because we're not talking here in Tanakh times where like Nevi'im can do tchias mesim, this is like the Amoraim times. So Avram ben Rambam says this as an example of Chazal's use of hyperbole, like he wounded him very, very badly, and he recovered. Not he was like brought back to life, but he recovered. No. Like he injured him physically. Yeah. Okay. And then the cutest, most adorable explanation is the Me'iri, which I didn't quote on the thing. He says it really should say sachte. He squeezed him really hard, and that like apparently injured him though, So they both take it not literally. He hugged him. Yeah.
It's still a physical thing.
It still is a physical thing. Yeah. It's not like a. Yeah, I mean, maybe some people. No, maybe some people take it completely allegorically. I just haven't seen that. What was it? I've never heard that before either. Yeah. So Lashana Amar Le. So the next year, Rabba said to Rabbi Zera, "Nicey Marv, Navi Tzudas Purim Bahadeh. Come on, let's make another Purim meal together." Amar Le, Lo B'Kol Shata V'Shata Misrachish Nisa. And so Rabbi said, not every time the miracle happens. And then the music went dun 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 dun. Hey, and then yeah. So that's the end of the story. So the Meiri learns that since this story comes right afterwards, this story is a dichui of the previous halacha, meaning it pushes it aside. And in general, the way you go in the Gemara is you treat the last statement on the matter as the halacha. So the Me'iri following the Gaonim takes this as a refutation of the above halacha. And that's hard because, first of all, obviously a lot of people disagree, but this doesn't definitively say that they revoked the takana. Say again? No, it doesn't. Right. Just as I'm not going to go to your house. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oren?
Also, just methodologically, can you really derive straight halacha like that?
Right. That's the other question. Is that I would have classified this as a gada, not halacha. Right.
Yeah, that sounds stupid.
This does not sound like a halachic thing. So I honestly don't know though. For all I know, and again, I'm not a Bucky and Shas, maybe there are instances of takanos where they halachically state that a takana was undone by stating an anecdote where it ended in a takala, where it ended in something bad. I don't know. Yeah.
On that, I remember something you showed me where it said they made a takana in response to the Sagata.
Yeah.
Where the 2 days of Yom Tov. The Yerushalmi specifically says they made this in response to some event when a rabbi was going to Alexandria and told them to do lulav on Shabbos on the basis that if you don't hold that there was ever a gezerah against it, they just held it if there's no suffix about when it happens, just do it. So the response is, are you going to go every year? They're going to start doing that, and are they going to go every year? As in, they'll cause a problem where people in Alexandria will be doing lulav on suffix Sukkot Shabbos. So therefore the made kind of to the chutz la'aretz.
So, but are you saying that that's a case where there was an anecdote that, it says that they made the takana though, right?
Yeah, it's the same way as it comes.
Yeah, right. So I'm asking could there ever be a case where they just describe people acting, not even violating the takana, they describe people following the takana and then something bad happened and then we take that to mean that the takana was rejected. And it seems to me not, but I don't know. I'm not an expert in Shas. Okay. Now, the whole reason I'm bringing the Me'iri in this Rambam Bekius here is what he says next. Okay. He says, "Inyan bir miha." So, in regards to the explanation, however, Zesha Amru of the fact that they said Bein Araham and the Baruch Mordechai, that you don't know the difference between Araham and Baruch Mordechai. Humi Masha Amru b'Talmud Hamarav. So this is what is said in the Talmud Yerushalmi. Shetzarich Lomar Achar Mikra Megillah Araham and Baruch Mordechai Baruch Esther Arur Zeresh. V'chein Shetzarich Lomar Charabono Zachar Latov. So that's the song that I mentioned, and this is shitos Tosfos, that you have to get drunk to the point where you don't, where you mess up the song, okay? And I actually did look up the Maxzor Vitri today that says that song was established by the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah. Okay, so it's a very old song that was made at the same time that all these halachos were made. So again, this is, for me, this is a relief because I always thought that Tosfos is how could Tosfos say that the whole halacha refers to a song, but really some random song, but no, if they made these halachos and they made the song, and shiur means till you mess up in speech, it stands to reason that you can interpret the Gemara to mean that you get drunk to the point where you mess up that song, the lyrics in the song. Yeah.
What does it mean establish the song?
He says that they were what's the lashon? I just WhatsApped it to my friend who's the Maxzor Vitri fanboy. Everyone should have a friend who's a Maxzor Vitri fanboy. So he says Maxzor Vitri was a siddur and a compendium of halachos by Rashi's student Rav Simcha of Vitri, and it's a source of a lot of old Ashkenazi minhagim. And so the Maxzor Vitri says the words. He says Zeha miyusad anshe Knesset HaGedolah. He says they established it. Which to me, that lashon also means that I know why he says established it, because they hold that it should actually be said. And that's what the Yerushalmi means, that, people mumble through it afterwards. Hold on just 1 second here. Pause. Yeah, right. So anyway, so the Yerushalmi apparently says you have to sing it. Apparently that's what the Maxzor Vitri might mean when he says that you they established it to be said. Okay, so that's the Meiri. Okay, but then the whole reason I'm doing this here in Rambam Bekius, even though this is all very interesting, is he says the Amar Shachayv Lihis Basim Ad Shelo Yeda Babar Ma Yomar. The statement that a person is obligated to get drunk means that he doesn't clearly know what he's saying. Okay, in this song. Ella shekavar nidchis ladatenu, but that shita has already been pushed aside. As we explained, and he says ugdoli hamachadrin kasvu ad shiradim, and the Rambam writes until he falls into a deep sleep. Now, do you remember what I got all pet peeved about yesterday?
Yeah.
So what I got pet peeved about yesterday is people always misquote the Rambam by saying you drink until you go to sleep, when the Rambam actually says you drink until you get drunk and go to sleep in your drunkenness. But the Meiri is saying that, quoting the Rambam saying ad shiradim, until you go to sleep, and he doesn't mention drunkenness, and he's quoting this to support his shita. So at this point, I thought to myself, I wonder if there were other versions of the Rambam that did not mention drunkenness. So then I went to the manuscripts, and unfortunately, the site seems to be down. Okay, as of this afternoon. So I'm going to check it again now. Okay. Hold on just 1 second here. So I know, right? Friedberg, let me see if it's I tried signing in like all morning. Oh, what just happened? Oh, see, now it's not even giving me the login screen. Is that weird? Wait, let me try. See, what was happening all afternoon is I would log in, and then when I tried going in, it would just blink and then go away. And then I tried doing it on incognito in case it was like a cookies thing, and that didn't work either.
You try a different browser also?
Who has a different browser? No, I don't have a different browser. Okay, yeah.
Like, what, Edge?
Do I?
Or whatever?
Oh, I didn't even know that was. I didn't even know that was a browser. I know, all I knew is it was something that I just ignore. Should I try it? Let's see. Edge.
I don't think it'll change anything.
Okay.
Also run on Chromium, but
Oh, see, I always thought this was just a PDF thing. That's funny. Because I just don't trust any of the Microsoft stuff. All right, let's try this.
it's very similar to Chrome. It's not on the same element now. I don't
Yeah.
think it'll.
All right, we'll try this and see. See, we have to, if the old people would like, if in the olden days people would travel like to distant lands to get manuscripts, we can at least go to a different browser. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm signed in. Does this work? No. See that it keeps on taking me to that. Okay, fine. So I assume it's a problem with the
No, wait.
Yeah.
Do a cached version. You know what I'm talking about?
No,
Cached.
cached version.
Yeah.
Would that even work?
It used to work for me, like where it's like I don't know why, but it's like a snapshot of just like.
Right. Yeah.
I have to like find a specific link.
Yeah. That it would be impossible from my perspective. Okay, fine. So I'll try it at some other point. So anyway, can I what? Paul? Go back to Meiri. Yeah. Okay, you might want to take it that way, but he's saying but that it's weird, he alternates, right? Because he starts off by saying, oh, see, here's how I'm reading the Meiri, okay, and I'm open to other interpretations. So he says that you are so first he states his actual shita, right? That you are obligated, that you're not commanded to get drunk. Okay. So then he says, what about the statement of, hold on. What about the statement of Adl Yada? So he says the Gonim say that was rejected. Okay, right? Then he says, Ul-Inyan Be'ur. So what did they mean though, before it was rejected? What did the Gemara mean by Adl Yada? So there they meant what the Yerushalmi said, until you mess up the song. Okay. And he says, and he's saying you have to get mixed up to the point where you don't know clearly what you're saying. But then he says, but that shita, he reiterates the shita, that shita of the Gemara was nidchis, according to our opinion, kamosha bi'arnu. And to top it off, the Rambam says, ad shiradim, without mentioning shikrus. That's how I'm reading the Meiri.
When you say the
is afterwards, yeah.
What does he mention?
Where does he mention what?
What does it say wrong?
So Meiri has nicknames for all the Rishonim. So Meiri came at the end of the Rishonim, so he calls like what I forgot. I used to know his nicknames for all of them. Like he calls like the Ravid Gedolei HaPoskim, I think, and he calls the Rambam the Gedolei HaMachabrim, like the greatest of the compilers. He calls Rashi the Gedolei HaMafarshim, something like that, the greatest of the Mafarshim. You know, so he has nicknames for all the Rishonim.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where he's pointing the Rambam.
So what is this one?
HaMachabrim, the people who make compilations of halacha. Yeah. Yeah, Mechaber, yeah, exactly.
It's interesting that there is already someone called that.
Well, because the Rambam was the first and the biggest Mechaber, right? So yeah.
Well,
Ashish Taker, right?
Well,
and
I'm saying
is young, yeah.
I know the meaning you're saying, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now if we're not quoting the whole Israel.
Right, that's true, right? He could just be paraphrasing it.
Whenever God had, I can or when he's doing that, I haven't drinking wine.
Yeah, right. Meaning there has to be something that the odd is qualifying, right? Yeah, but drink is right. So that's what I'm saying is like that's how people popularly quote it, which is drinking wine until you fall into a deep sleep, not becoming drunk until you fall into a drunken sleep. Right? You see?
And I want to say like that you drink more than usual when going to sleep.
Not even more than usual, just that you become hold on a second. Not necessarily shiur though, right? Yeah. Oh, and I found something that supports you. Yeah. Let me just see if I found this in. Okay, I'm sorry. This is a Rambam Bekius. This is not a all shitos Bekius. I'll just say it really quickly without trying to find it. That there's someone who says that back then when wine was not readily available, then it didn't take them that much to be affected by the wine. And then he says, but nowadays, and he quotes Gemaras. Now, I always thought these Gemaras were about specific Amoraim, but there's the Gemaras about the Amoraim that so-and-so would drink the 4 cups in Pesach and he would have a headache until Shavuos. And then the other one says he drank 4 cups in Pesach and he would have a headache until Sukkot, which is other rabbinic hyperbole. But the point he was making is that, like he said, so he says they would drink and get drunk very easily. They didn't need to drink that much, but then we can drink a lot without getting drunk, so we shouldn't do it.
Their wine is also different than ours.
Right? Yeah, and it's a weird reason.
I'm not following the one. That doesn't mean the thing that they were doing. That means you have to drink more.
You could say that, right? Yeah.
Not saying that.
Right.
I'm not following the reason.
Yeah, I hear. Yeah, you know what we're gonna say?
Chizkar said the wine was different.
Yeah.
When and where are you talking about?
The person who I just quoted,
Yeah.
I don't remember, and I don't remember if he was in the thing I started compiling.
No, right. So I do think it has a practical difference though, to have that the wine affects you differently. Because when you have a higher tolerance for wine, if you can prolong how long you have it in your system for, it also has at the end a stronger, longer finishing effect than if it knocks you out at the beginning, because it doesn't have time to build into this like maniacalness or whatever you want to call it. That otherwise someone who's like someone who's like an alcoholic, it takes more for them to get there, but they also reach a different state.
Especially in Europe, for a lot of history, they didn't drink water. They just drank either beer or wine.
Not wine, not
know.
Someone's shaking his head. Yeah. Okay. Can I put this discussion on pause? I really want to finish the Rambam today.
Yes.
Okay. And I want to get into Hilchos Yom Tov. Okay. So this is all very interesting for not a Rambam Bekius here, but let's continue with the Rambam. And I do want to hear what you're going to say after shiur as I'm packing up, because I got to go. I got to also leave right at 2:30 today. And this turns off now. Okay. So likewise, a person is obligated to send 2 portions of meat or 2 types of cooked dishes, or 2 types of food to his friend, right? Again, common misconception, it's not 2 brachos, right? It's just 2 types of food. You can
do 2 types of meat?
Yeah, that's in fact, the Rambam and the Mechaber imply lechatchila, you should do 2 types of meat.
How much do they say how big the size of the meat should be?
It doesn't say, I mean, I think, I mean, it's good. Well, question is, what is a mana? Like a mana is like a gift or a portion, right? Not just like enough for my say achila. I'm not sure. Shnemar, as it says, mishlach manos ish l'reihu, shtei manos la'adam echad, 2 gifts to 1 person. Kol amar b'lishloch l'reim meshubach. The more a person sends to friends, the more praiseworthy it is. The main low. And if he doesn't have enough to give to people, then he should switch with his friend. This guy sends his meal to this guy. They swap meals basically. In order to fulfill sending gifts to their friend. Okay. Now, what if you can't even afford a meal? Then go collect your matanos lavionim and buy. I don't know. Okay, so that is the second mitzvah. Okay, mishalach manos ish le'ehu. And then the last one, person is obligated to distribute to the poor people on Yom HaPurim. In pachos mishne aniyim, no fewer than 2 aniyim, which implies something obvious, but means that it's not that the mitzvah is to do 2. And that's it. Like 2 is the minimum, right? You just can't do fewer than 2. No sinchol echad matana achas. You have to give them each 1 gift. Omaos omini tavshil omini oflin. Either money, cooked foods, or non-cooked foods. Shnemar, as it says, matanos lavionim. Gifts to the poor. Shtei matanos l'shnei aniyim. Right? Because this is the whole thing with in halacha. You assume that the minimum of a plural is 2. Right? So 2 gifts to 2 poor people. Okay. We're not medactic here would mean like particular, yeah, but you'll see. We don't scrutinize, yeah, exactly, yeah, we don't scrutinize people when it comes to the money of Purim. Anyone who reaches forth his hand to take, then we give to him. And again, that's in contrast to year round. Let's say like around here, the poor person says, "Give me money," and you say, "Show me your certificate." Like you can validate whether the person to make sure that they're poor, right? Yeah, because people fake it, right? And I'm sure people faked it back then. Also, I don't know what system they had back then, but
we don't. You're saying we don't do that.
We don't do that on Purim, but we do that year round.
We do.
Yeah, we do. I mean,
How do you?
No, we don't. I was in charge of the tzedakah here for my time in yeshiva, and the system here, and I assume it's in any big Jewish city. If you're poor, you go to the VAD, you go to the rabbinical council of the city, and they do whatever investigation they need to do, and then they give you a certificate with an expiration date. And that validates that you actually are in need of tzedakah. And what that does is it prevents charlatans from stealing from the poor by pretending to be poor. And all throughout my time here, I mean, it was very common. People would come with fake certificates or with clearly written over, expiration dates or whatever. And the halacha that I was told is, you give them something, but you don't give them like a real amount.
Why do you give them something?
Because they might be poor. I mean, they might be poor, but like
maybe they're poor, but they just haven't.
Maybe they have some sort of but like but the point is that we have a right to check them out.
Right.
Yeah, Joseph.
What does it mean to be a faker? Because in that, if you're relying on money from the charity, then does that mean you're poor?
No, people scam all the time.
$1 million. Don't.
Right. Yeah. You can find videos on YouTube of people who like beg on the street, and then they go and they get in their fancy sports car and then drive off. Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the Jewish community, I would venture to guess that in the Jewish community, where giving tzedakah is a thing, not exclusively the Jewish community, but where like people know that people give tzedakah, then people are going to take advantage of that even more. Or like the best story that I heard, I think Mendy Fader was out of town for some holiday or whatever, and like someone came to collect tzedakah for an orphanage, and Mendy like looked at his certificate and he says, "This is right next to, like around the corner from my house. There's no orphanage there." Like the guy had like faked a whole orphanage. So yeah. Okay. Ve'in mishanin ma'os purim l'tzedakah acheres. Yeah. If you're profiting off of fake orphans, like that's and with a specific address, at least make up something. Yeah. You cannot exchange Purim money for another tzedakah. Rav Makbili says, "Maos Purim, maos shenigbu lematanos avyonim." So let's say like Leslie Unger, collects matanos avyonim. Oh, by the way, for those who are new, definitely give your money to Leslie Unger before 5 p.m. because I was just telling this to someone today. You cannot rely on the assumption that, oh, I'll find poor people on Purim around here. There are no poor people on Purim around here. Like they're here in the very, very beginning of the day, and then they all go elsewhere. And like, I know that there have been cases like on Purim where like a yeshiva guy is like, oh, I'll do it on Purim. He can't find any poor people. And he's just not yotze, you know? So like give it to Leslie by today at 5. Yeah.
Is there like,
Yeah. In his gender. Yeah.
this is a nice
Or use the PayPal thing. Yeah.
Is there like a normal amount that people use or like
Whenever I've asked, I've been told that the amount per poor person is enough to buy a meal.
okay.
So what, like
Yeah.
$15?
That would definitely be enough. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that you could buy a meal for 10 or maybe even
And it's
5
for 2 people, right?
for 2 people. Yeah. Yeah.
$5.
Yeah. I mean, probably. Yeah. I mean, there's probably like, lunch specials somewhere, but yeah, but definitely, yeah. Did you have a question or you just asked about Leslie?
How's the point giving to Leslie? Like, do we just put money in the shender?
Yeah, and then it teleports. No, no, and then he's going to come and pick it up, and then he gives it all to Yad Yeshaya, and then makes them swear a blood oath to only deliver it on Purim itself.
Yeah, I mean,
No, it's not a blood oath. Yeah, but he's very serious about it because, yeah.
I mean, as there's supposed to be separate envelopes, or just put money, he'll separate out the cash to different poor people.
I mean, I don't know how the actual distribution works, but like everyone relies
Like,
on
there's no evidence. I just would say give him cash.
cash or check. Yeah, yeah. Putting food in his tender would be awkward. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So now we're at the very end. Okay. Oh, sorry. One more thing. The reason why we don't. I was just reading this. Mouse. So let's say Mouse should nigbula matanos of iyun. So let's say Leslie gathers a bunch of money for the poor. You cannot change it for another tzedakah. In other words, you can't use it for regular tzedakah purposes. Like once it's designated for matanos lavionim, you use it for that. And the reason is matanos lavionim is not tzedakah, right? It's its own mitzvah halachically, and it's also a different purpose. Tzedakah is for the purpose of, I mean, obviously there is something in common, but tzedakah is for the purpose of caring for people's needs. Matanos lavionim is for simchah, is simchah money and facilitating their simchas Purim. Okay, now the Rambam gets to the last 2 halachos. Okay, this is the juicy part. I mean, other parts were juicy also, but mutav la'adam laharbos b'matanos evyonim milaharbos b'sudasa u'b'shaluach l'reav. It is better for a person to increase in his gifts to the poor than to increase in his su'uda and in sending gifts to friends. Okay. Because there is no greater and more glorious simcha than to cause the hearts of the poor and the orphans and the widows and the converts to rejoice. One who brings joy to these downtrodden people, midame b'shchina, is similar to the shchina. Shnemar, as it says, lahachos ruach shvalim lahachos lev nikaim, to enliven the spirit of the lowly and to give life to the hearts of the oppressed. Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to, I think this is going to be one of our key halachos in understanding like what the nature of Simchas Purim is. And this is not unique to Purim, but this is where he states, this is the only place in Hilchos Purim where he makes a hashkafic statement about like the greater, how this fits into the greater framework of Judaism on Purim. And again, this is, not that we need to like rail against what people do, but it seems to be from my experience here that people often have the opposite trend, that like people make all these very, very expensive mishloach manos, and if they're making even more donations to the poor, then that's great, but if they're not, then they're doing really the reverse,
Oh, right. And it's almost like in a way, because it's not anonymous when it's to like their friend, it's like there's more incentive there to like give them a nice like
yes, right, you get the immediate reward of oh, you're such a nice thing, and like you get to take all your Instagram pictures and stuff. Yeah exactly. Oh, by the way, a thing that I just realized right before I left. So this is also a side rant. Okay, so I used to really rant about this because it used to really just irritate me, but now I'm just only mini ranting. The Divrei Torah people give about how Purim is similar to Yom HaKippurim, right? Yeah, they give those drashas, right? And they say because Yom Kippur is a Yom Kippurim, right? Now, the reason why it drives me crazy, obviously, is because
it's a different root.
It's a different language.
Yeah.
The Megillah itself says that Purim in Hebrew means Goral, but Purim is not a Hebrew word. A lottery, right? The lottery that Haman used to do the things. So like, it'd be like saying, like the analogy I give is like, I once heard a Devar Torah at a wedding and the person gave the Devar Torah saying that this is it's clearly like God wanted the Chas and Kala to get married on this day because it's a Wednesday and it's wed Nace day, and like, so you see that if you have a wedding on this day, it's going to be a miracle, Exactly, and right. So that's one thing. The other thing is I mentioned this to Johnny, and I had forgotten where Wednesday comes from. So he said it comes from I guess a lot of the days of the week come from Norse gods, right? So it comes from, I think, Odin's day. Yeah. Odin is one of the Norse gods. Right. So it's like he's just taking is it Venus? I don't remember. A foreign avodah zarah word and then giving a drasha for Hebrew. Now, again, if you make clear it's a drasha, then fine, right? So I used to get upset about this, and then I actually did research this year to yeah. No. So I wanted to look who's the earliest source who mentions it, because I saw in that Rav book that I mentioned, the Rav quotes. It was first of all, Jesse Fishbein told me, like, well, the Rav uses it. And I said I wouldn't believe it even if Yeshua ben Nun said it, But the Rav quotes it in the name of the Balei HaKabbalah, right? So to me, Balei HaKabbalah is code for very, very recent people. Not that makes the idea illegitimate, but I also wonder, is there a midrash, So the earliest source, I think, is either the Maharal from Prague, who's in the 1500s, right? Who was one of the, he was a Kabbalist, and then the Tikkune. Sorry, what's the question right now? The earliest source for this drasha connecting Yom HaKippurim to Purim. Oh, okay. So Tikkune Zohar. For the record, it's Mercury. I just remember. Mercury, okay. Spanish. Yeah. So Tikkune Zohar. I always forget which part of the Zohar are what, but whatever. Printed first in 1558. So that looks like it's not part of the original Zohar, because the original Zohar was printed in 1329 or something like that. Anyway, so it's not a Gemara or a Midrash. Okay. However, today, okay, this is breaking news. Okay, breaking news. I realized that maybe you can make a Dvar Torah about Yom HaKippurim and Purim based on the Rambam. How? No, you're not going to be able to deny this one. Where do we read this pasuk? In the Haftorah of Yom Kippur. Okay, in the Haftorah of Yom Kippur, where God says, in fact, what's the whole message of Yom Kippur? That I phrased that wrong. The message of what kind of fast does God accept, and what kind of fast does He reject? Yeah, but what? How does He measure the sincere fast?
Well, if afterwards you really do have like a change of whatever,
and do what? So Tshuva is definitely good. So I'll read later on in Haftorah, but then I'll read the first part later on Haftorah. So this is I'll read earlier. So it starts off by saying this is in Yeshayahu 57:14. Pave a road, lift up the obstacle from my people's path. For so says the exalted and uplifted one, who abides forever and whose name is holy. Quote, I abide in exaltedness and holiness, but I am with the contrite and lowly of spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. Okay, so God's saying, even though I am completely removed from humanity, like I am, eternal and separate, I am also with the poor, and I care about them, and like I help them, right? So then Haftorah goes on, and then he transitions into people complaining about why God is not responding to their fasts. Okay, it says they cry out vociferously, be not restrained, raise your voice like a shofar, proclaim to my people their willful sins, to the family of Jacob their error. They pretend to seek my ways every day, the Jewish people, and they pretend to desire knowledge of my ways, like a nation that acts righteously and has not forsaken the justice of its God. They inquire of me about righteous laws as if they desire the nearness of God. They ask, why did you, God, not see when we fasted? We afflicted ourselves and you ignored it. Okay, so what's God's answer? God answers, because on your fast day you sought out personal desires and you oppressed all whom you aggrieved. Because you fast with grievance and strife and strike with a wicked fist, you do not fast as befits this day to make your voice heard above. Could this be the fast I choose, a day when man merely afflicts himself? Can it be bowing his head like a bulrush and making a mattress of sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast day and a day of favor to Hashem? Now here he describes what kind of fast he wants. Surely this is the fast I choose. Open the bonds of wickedness, dissolve the groups that pervert justice, let the oppressed go free and annul all perverted justice. Surely you should divide your bread with the hungry and bring the moaning poor to your home. When you see the naked, cover him and do not ignore your kin. Then your light will burst forth like the dawn and your healing will speedily sprout. Then your righteous deed will precede you and the glory of Hashem will gather you in. Then you will call and Hashem will respond. You will cry out and he will say, here I am. If you remove from your midst perversion, finger pointing and evil speech, if you offer your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light will shine in darkness and your deepest gloom will be like the moon. Then Hashem will guide you, always sate your soul in times of drought and strengthen your bones, and you will be like a well-watered garden and a spring whose waters never fail. So it's specifically, doing tshuva, but it has to extend to doing justice and helping the poor and removing like lashon hara and like accusations from people. And then the interesting thing is he says the theme of Purim, then you will call and God will answer, So I think there are grounds here for making an actual Dvar Torah about a thematic connection between Yom Kippur and Purim, which is pretty cool, which I never noticed until this year. And,
Yom Kippur,
leap across the table and strangle. Right. Okay, so this is our clue for the simcha of Purim, and we're going to see in a second that this is also very similar to Yom Tov. Okay. In fact, actually, I want to go there now in case we don't have time. To Yom Tov. Yeah. So let's I know we're not doing the last halakha right now. If you want to look in Shevisas Yom Tov, you want to read the last halakha? This is going to take us into a black hole. Ready for this? Kol Sifrei Hanavim V'Kol Ksuvim Asidim Libatal Yemos Mashiach. All the books of the prophets and the writings are in the future going to be nullified in the time of Mashiach. Chut mi Megillas Esther, except for Megillas Esther. It will last, the Megillas Esther will last like the 5 books of Torah and like the halachos of Torah Shabbat Pesh, which are never nullified. Even though the memorial of all of the tragedies will be nullified, Shneimar, as it says, that the earlier tragedies will be forgotten. The days of Purim will not be nullified. Shneimar, as it says, these days of Purim will not cease from amid the Jews, and their remembrance will not cease from their offspring. That's your question. Splaying of the hands.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What? What indeed?
I like it.
Good. That's the point of why we learn. So we like things.
Chronicles, or is that?
No, Ksuvim is all of the writings, meaning.
But what are they referring to?
Meaning.
They already said Nevi'im.
Yeah, well, no. Vim is all the prophets, and then
Right.
Ksuvim is Tehillim, Mishlei, Iyov, Shir, Shirim, Rus, Eicha, Koheles, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Devar Yamim.
Oh, I always considered those.
Yeah, no, that's not the Vim.
Nehemiah is considered.
Nehemiah is Ksuvim,
What's-
yeah.
Okay, this just means the writings. It doesn't mean anything more specific.
Well, the Rambam, there's a machlokas about what gets included in the writings and what gets included in the Nevi'im. The Rambam holds, and since the Rambam share, we'll just say the Rambam Shita, which is very problematic, is that that Nevi'im include Nevuah and Ksuvim only include stuff written with Ruach HaKodesh. The problem with it is you have books like Daniel that talk about what's going to happen in the future,
Right.
and according to some people, Tehillim also, so like the Abravanel argues with him for that, and he holds that the Nevi'im were, people whose Nevuahs were given, who like actually had to like lead the people and like deliver these Nevuahs, whereas the Ksuvim were not leading people through these Nevuahs. But I don't know what his definition is of Ksuvim. So that's, yeah. Okay, but let's get to, I want to get to Hilchos Yom Tov here, okay, because that was the whole, the whole thing, to compare Purim and Yom Tov. So look in Sefer Zmanim, Hilchos Shevisas Yom Tov, Perek Vav. Halacha. Perek Vav in Shevisas Yom Tov. Halacha Yud Zayin. And here we'll see a very different expression of simcha, but certain commonalities in theme, though. You got it? Shivas Yimei Pesach. You want to tell them the page number? Yud Zayin. Okay. Shivas Yimei Pesach, Ushmonos Yimei HaChag, Im Shar Yomim Tovim. So the 7 days of Pesach and the 8 days of Sukkot with the other Yom Tovim, and the other Yom Tovim being Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah, not Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is not a Yom Tov. Kulam asurim b'sefed v'tanis. All of them are prohibited in eulogizing and fasting. That is the negative the passive expression of simcha that we talked about before. So they all have the same baseline. And a person is obligated on them to be happy and glad of heart. Okay, now this gets to a shiur that I gave last year of does the Torah ever command you in emotions? My contention is no. The Torah commands you in actions that promote emotions, but the Torah doesn't command you to feel things. Because you can't command someone to feel something. You could command them to do actions or think thoughts that lead to certain feelings. But he's going to say what it means. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is it sounds like he's just saying the Torah says be happy, but he's going to say ketzad. Okay, what was that?
Be happy like that, right?
Yeah. He and his children and his wife and his household members and all those who attach themselves to them. You shall rejoice on your festival. Now, even though the simcha mentioned in that pasuk, when it says v'samachta b'chagacha, which sounds like it's saying rejoice on your festival, what it's really saying according to Torah Shebal Peh is bring a korban shlamim. Okay, so even though that is referring, korban shlamim is referring to bringing a korban shlamim when you do a leila regel, kamosh anu hilchos chagiga, as we'll mention later on in chagiga. Yesh bichlal osa simcha, there is included in that simcha lismoach hu ubana uvnei beso koach becha b'roilo, to rejoice he and his children and his household members, each one with what is appropriate to them. Okay, so it's included in that the samachta. Okay, so what is that? And nowadays it's not just included; it's all we have. We don't do the korban shlamim anymore. So the only simcha we have in Yom Tov is what he's about to describe. Okay, ketzad, how so? Haktanim, the little kids, nosim lahem klayos ve'egozim umigdanos. You give them toast, popcorn, right, and nuts, and I think migdanos are clothing. Like gifts, right? Vahanashim and or maybe McDonald's is not clothing, maybe it's delicacies.
It sounds like McDonald's. Like
don't give them McDonald's. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I think maybe yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe it is delicacies. I can't remember. Vahanashim and the women, kone lahen begadim v'tachshit kfi mamono. And the women you buy for them clothing and jewelry according to your finances. And the men, and the men eat meat and drink wine. Sorry, yeah, eat meat and drink wine. Because there's no simcha without meat and there's no simcha without wine. Okay, for men. Okay, so the idea is that you give the halacha set up that you are misameach them in the stereotypical ways. Now, obviously, not every man likes meat and not every woman likes clothing, but the halacha can't say, find out your kid's favorite toy and give it to them. Like, that's not how halachos work. Halachos give like these general categories. And yeah, if meat doesn't make you happy, then don't eat meat. And if your wife hates jewelry, then don't get her jewelry,
Why couldn't it in this case? I get that maybe another kid, but it's appropriate. It could be appropriate here to say, just halachically give people what makes them happy.
I don't think laws can work that way. Pesach's a good example of this that sticks in my mind is like you have a speed limit, right? And the speed limit, the purpose of the speed limit is that you're driving at a speed that is like, maximum efficiency, but also safety, right? So, right. But the thing is like, there are cases where like, if you're, if it's a 35-mile-per-hour zone and like it's 2 a.m. in the morning, then like, there isn't going to be anyone on the roads. Like maybe you can go faster, or like maybe if you are, if there's extenuating circumstances. So why doesn't the speed limit sign just say drive safely? And the answer is that's not a law, that's a principle. And the whole thing with laws is you make them indiscriminate and universal. That's the difference between law and principle. If all laws are aimed to achieve principles, sure. But the nature of a law is that it's uniform.
Right, but I understand that in laws that have to do with how you're affecting other people, like how me following this law not only affects me and whoever I'm interacting with, but the rest of society. Like I get that in that case, I can't make it subjective. Mm. But this one is literally a subjective thing. Like it just comes down to what that person enjoys, right? Or is there some other?
So that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I'm not saying that this is the only answer. I'm saying that my understanding is that the Torah doesn't make laws like that say like do you. The Torah makes categorical laws. Yeah. That's also true, right? Meaning yeah, right. That's also true, right?
All right.
Yeah. The only the reason why I say that might not address what Hilchos was saying is because here it does seem like the purpose is to get you into a happy mood, and the happy mood is directing you towards something else. So, in other words, there's no connection between jewelry and the ideas of Avas Hashem and stuff, but just a happy mood. Okay, now this is the part that is very common. It is similar to Purim. And when you eat and drink on Yom Tov, you're obligated to feed the ger, the orphan, and the widow with the other poor downtrodden people. And by the way, there's a separate mitzvah aseh or los aseh, or both. No, los aseh, to not abandon the Levi, because Levi was also included in this category. I don't know why he doesn't mention Levi here. But Levim were also poor in the time of Eretz Yisrael, because they didn't have land, right?
They actually live like poor people.
I don't know if they live like poor people, but they were not earners in the sense that there's a cap on how far they could get. Yeah.
Why not show?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But let's say you close, someone who closes the doors of his courtyard and eats and drinks alone with his wife and kids, and he does not give drink and food to the poor and to the bitter souls. This is not a simchah of a mitzvah, this is a simchah of his belly. And regarding them, it is said, their offerings are like the bread of mourners to them. Anyone who eats it will become impure. Because their bread is for their souls, meaning they're just indulging in their own, their own pleasures on this day. The simchah kazo kalon hilahem, and this simchah is a disgrace for them. Shneimar, as it says, "V'zereisi perish al pneichem perish chalgeichem." I will scatter filth in your faces, the filth of your festivals. Okay, so that's where you see that there's a justice component, that you have to welcome in the poor on Simchas Yom Tov, and if you exclude them, then you're not even in the realm of simcha, right? It's of the Simchas Shel Mitzvah. Okay, then he goes on, even though eating and drinking on the holidays is a mitzvah saseh, you shouldn't eat and drink all day. This is the procedure. In the morning, everyone gets up early, goes to shul and the base midrash. And they daven and they read in the Torah in the subject of the day. They go home and they eat, meaning they eat a small meal. Not a big meal. Then they go back to the base midrash, still in the morning, and they read and learn until midday. Then after midday they daven mincha, and then they go back home and eat and drink the rest of the day with the night. This is what we call chati l'shem, chati lachem. So the first half of the day is davening and learning. The second half of the day is eating and drinking. Okay, when a person eats and drinks and rejoices on the festival, and this is going to be very relevant to Purim, he should not, this is the one that you're going to want to quote to people. He should not be drawn after wine and joking around and frivolity and say that the more he does this, then the more he's doing the mitzvah. Because drunkenness and excessive joking and frivolity is not simcha, rather it is wildness and debauchery. This is what the Me'iry was paraphrasing. We were not commanded on wildness and debauchery. We were commanded on simcha that contains in it the service of the creator of everything. As it says, because you did not serve Hashem your God with simcha and with gladness of heart, and then the rest of the pasuk says, therefore you will serve your enemies. So you see halamata. So you see from here, avodah b'simcha. That's that avodas Hashem has to be b'simcha. V'iyavshar la'avodas Hashem lo mitoch schok lo mitoch kalos rosh lo mitoch shikrus. And it is impossible to serve Hashem out of joking, out of frivolity, or out of drunkenness, which is why I asked the question on Friday when we were dealing with this topic. How can the Rambam say that you get drunk on Purim as avoda and simcha when he says it's impossible to serve God out of drunkenness? And he says that drunkenness is not mitzvah. That seems to be an actual contradiction in the Rambam. Yeah, Chaim? Yeah, right. So that's a big problem. Still remains a big problem. right? If he just said you drink, you get shasui, you get buzzed, that would be fine. But he says, what was that? That is the mitzvah, right? That is the mitzvah, right? Yeah, that's a problem I come back to every year. Yeah, I believe I gave a shiur out last year why I answered it, but apparently the answer wasn't good because I don't remember it. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Right, so that's the big problem here. Okay. Then he goes on, and this is something that I guess if you've been around these parts, then you can see that this should be done even today.
It does seem like overall, just when we're taking all of the different authors into account, Meiry, and then that at best with the Rambam, it's not even conclusive that it would be. It seems like the best person to use as a support for getting really drunk or whatever would be the Rambam and that halacha. But even then, there's that contradiction that you're saying.
Right.
So it still seems very much like it's ultimately saying, yeah, don't. Like if we're taking all of these different authors into account.
Well, let's put it this way. Yeah, it is a different mitzvah, right? And the Rambam was definitely saying by Purim that you get drunk, but definitely they're all against the craziness and the wildness and the stuff that comes from drunkenness, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so then he says, Chayavim Beis Din Lahamid Shotrim B'Regalim. So the Beis Din is obligated to set up police officers on the festivals. Sheyihu Mesabavin Umachapsim Beginos Uvafardesim Uval Hanaharos, that will circle around, like make their rounds and search out in the gardens and in the orchards and by the rivers. So that men and women don't congregate to like eat and drink there and come to Avera. These are like they used to call these I think there's like a name for these people in the not like chaperones. I mean they're kind of like chaperones, but like more like like is morality police a thing? Like no, but I'm saying like but they would like break up, like go to all like the makeout locations, as the kids in the 40s used to say. Yeah.
So by this, would that be that the YBC is doing with its once a night thing is what the Rambam was saying? That's the thing you have guards to avoid.
No.
Wait, I missed.
Because you're having men, women.
Sorry. Hold on, just a second. Are you talking? Okay.
I'm guessing they mean with just you and one other person, or how many people?
I mean, it sounds like these are like if you imagine what an orchard or a garden looks like, like lots of trees and bushes to hide behind, or like gazebos, walled gazebos that have like it seems like these are places where people would go and like fool around, They would warn everyone about this. Oh, so that's interesting. So they would so that they would not men and women would not mingle in houses for simchah, and not be drawn after wine. So apparently there's two levels, right? There's sending people around to actually check, and then there's warning people about this kind of thing to not mingle for lest there be a avera. Okay, I really have to go today. Is this anything for our other thing? Okay. Yeah, all right, I have to go now, but yeah, maybe it's possible we'll do it tomorrow. Okay, all right, let's plan to learn tomorrow, but we'll see. Okay.
I don't want to tomorrow. But not for me.